DJI FPV tutorials. First flight. DJI FPV drone. Open the microSD card cover and insert a microSD card. Remove the gimbal cover. Ensure the propellers are properly attached. Align the propeller on the motor, then press down and rotate to secure them. Insert the battery into the battery compartment. Make sure it is secured in place. DJI FPV Goggles V2. The front of the DJI FPV Goggles V2 has 4 replaceable antennas to ensure optimum signal receiving and communication. Ensure the antennas are properly tightened before flying. On the upper right side of the goggles, you will find the shutter record button, back button, and 5D button. Toggle the 5D button to scroll the menu and press to confirm a selection. Toggle up to go back, and toggle down to move to the next option. Toggle right to shift menu options right. Toggle left to shift menu options left. On the right side of the goggles, you will find the link button, power port, and audio port. The microSD card slot and USB-C port are on the left side. The USB-C port can be used to connect with smartphones via the OTG cable. On the bottom of the goggles, you will find the IPD slider. You can adjust the interpupillary distance by moving the slider left or right. You can also purchase and install DJI FPV goggles corrective lenses according to your visual needs. DJI FPV Remote Controller 2. The DJI FPV Remote Controller 2 has a USB-C port in the middle that can be used for charging or to connect to a computer for firmware updates. Control stick slots are located on both sides of the remote controller. On the front side of the remote controller, you can find the customizable C1 button, lanyard attachment, and power button. Press the power button once to check the battery level. Press once and then hold for 2 seconds to power the remote controller on or off. The antenna is located on the top of the remote controller. Unfold the antenna during flight for optimum signal transmission. You will find the flight pause RTH button, flight mode switch, and gimbal dial on the left side. Press the flight pause RTH button once while flying, and the drone will stop and hover in place. Press the button and hold for 2 seconds, and the drone will automatically return to home. The flight mode switch button supports 3 modes: N, normal mode, S, sport mode, and M, manual mode. Toggle the gimbal dial to the left and right to adjust the gimbal pitch. In the top of the controller, you will find the customizable C2 switch, shutter record button, and start-stop button. The C2 switch is set to control gimbal movements by default. You can also customize this button's function by going to Setting, Control, Remote Controller on the goggles interface. Press the shutter record button once to take a photo or to start or stop recording. Press and hold the shutter record button to switch between photo and video modes. Pre-flight setup. For your first flight, we recommend choosing an open and unobstructed area. Check the battery level and place the drone on level ground. Remember, the drone should be facing outward with the rear side facing you. Power on. Check the battery level of the remote controller and power on. Set the remote controller to in mode before taking off. Check the battery level of the goggles. Power on. And adjust the headband and interpupillary distance for a clear, comfortable display. Check the screen interface and make sure no errors occur and GPS signal is sufficient. Power on the motors of the drone by pushing the control sticks down and inward. Then push the left stick up to ascend. The RTH point will be set after takeoff. Please remember the position of your home point. Basic operation, using mode 2 as an example. In mode, use the left control stick to adjust flight height and heading. Use the right control stick to fly the drone forward, backward, left, and right. When pushing the right stick to fly forward, You can also push the left stick to the left or right for turning with customizable roll angle limits. In mode, the drone will only slow down when obstacles are detected. It will not stop and hover automatically. You'll need to manually control the drone to stop or to bypass detected obstacles. After switching to S mode, control logic will remain the same, but the drone's maximum flight speed will increase to 27 meters per second. In S mode, obstacle sensing is disabled. S mode also supports cruise control. Press the Start/Stop button to enter cruise control. Press again to exit. Once cruise control is enabled, the drone will fly forward at a constant speed without any control stick movements. You can also move the right control stick forward or backward to accelerate or decelerate. For users interested in M-mode flight, make sure you have watched the M-mode tutorial before flying and have adequately practiced in the DJI Virtual Flight app in order to ensure a safe, controlled flight. If an emergency occurs, or you experience loss of orientation or control during flight in any mode, simply press the Flight Pause RTH button and the drone will stop and hover in place. RTH and landing. Press and hold the Flight Pause RTH button to make the drone automatically return to home. When returning to home, set the drone to N mode and always keep an eye on the home point shown on screen. Pay attention to the surrounding environment when landing. Due to the limitations of GPS precision, there may be small deviations between the set home position and the actual landing location. You can press the Flight Pause RTH button again to cancel return to home. In order to avoid any burns caused by overheating, do not detach the propellers immediately after landing. Safety precautions. If the drone is lost during flight, but the camera view is still available, go to the Find My Drone page and try to locate it on the map using the camera view, along with flashes and beeps from the drone. If the camera view is not available, you can locate your drone by comparing the coordinates on the Find My Drone page with the coordinates in your last flight log. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to always be safe and have fun when flying.
Hit the like button if this tutorial was helpful. If you need any support with your DJI gear, feel free to contact us via Facebook Messenger by following the link in the description. Thank you for watching.
What's good, guys? Breck Aramella, the Drone Pilot Pro here, and this video is a complete beginner's guide to the DJI FPV. So if you just got a DJI FPV drone, I'm gonna do my best to get you set up and get out there and start flying. So let's get into it. All right, first things first, what I always like to do is just open up the box and take out all the parts and make sure you have all the parts that were supposed to come. It's very rare that DJI will forget the parts, but I always like to make sure, just put it out on the table and just check it off and make sure they're all there. All right, first thing I do when I get a new drone is I charge all the batteries. So you're gonna wanna charge the drone battery, you're gonna wanna charge the controller, and you're gonna wanna charge, in this case, the goggles as well. So all three of those need to be charged, and make sure you charge them to 100%. You only need to charge one battery for the drone, but if you got the charging hub, you could charge all the batteries together if you wanted to do that. All right, next thing you want to do is download the DJI Fly app, whether you have an Android or an Apple device. If you already have the DJI Fly app, what I found is that sometimes it's kind of glitchy because it's a new app. What I do is I uninstall the DJI Fly app and delete it completely from my phone, and then I reinstall it, and therefore it's up to date and everything is running properly. So I'd recommend that you do that. Next, remove the gimbal cover and then the film that's on the gimbal camera, so nothing happens to the camera when you turn it on. And always have the gimbal cover off when you turn on the drone. When the drone is off, make sure the gimbal cover is on the drone. And this will help maintain the integrity of the gimbal for a really long time. So I always recommend you have that cover on when you don't use it. And if you lose a gimbal cover, don't worry, DJI sells extra gimbal covers on its website. And I'll put a link to the gimbal cover, other accessories, batteries, etc. in the description below to make it easier for you. All right, you're gonna open up this cover right here and put in your micro SD card. Now the DJI FPV can hold a micro SD card up to 256 gigabytes. Now SanDisk Extreme Pro makes great micro SD cards. I'd recommend 128 gigabytes because that'll give you enough record time. If you decided to buy a 256 gigabyte card, keep in mind if you crash your drone or something happens to it and you lose that card, then that card is lost, and if it's a really expensive card, that could be a bummer. So it might be a good idea to carry multiple cards, maybe multiple 128 gigabyte cards rather than one 256 gigabyte card. All right, in the description below is my recommended micro SD cards. I would get at least 64 gigs, but you could get 128 or 256 if you wanted. Just click on the link of the one that you want. Now it might be a good idea to put a micro SD card into your goggles as well. However, the goggles aren't going to record the video in as good quality as your drone, so the drone's going to have much better quality than on the goggles. You can look at the footage on the goggles on that micro SD card in your goggles as a backup. In case you crash the drone, you still have the footage. It's not the absolute best footage, but you still have the footage. All right, once everything is charged, you take the battery and put it into the drone like this, and make sure you push all the way in so it's secure. All right, to turn on the battery, you press it once and then you press it again, immediately again, and hold it down for a couple seconds and the battery will turn on. You want to do the same thing with the remote controller and the goggles battery. All right, you're gonna need the OTG cable, the USB-C end into the goggles, and the USB end goes into a normal data cable. So you need that OTG cable. One end is connected to the goggles, the other end is connected to the cable, and at the other end of the cable, you can connect that into your device. Now, before we activate the drone and get into the DJI Fly app, you have to make sure everything is linked. Now, if you bought the combo, everything is linked together. However, if you crash your drone and get a new drone or use a different controller or something like this, you're gonna have to link them together. So I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. And if you just bought the DJI FPV, you can skip this step and go on to the activation step, which is the next step after this. All right, so to link the goggles, you have to make sure everything is turned on. So